Hello Year 7 and welcome to the third lesson in our development topic. This lesson looks particularly at the factors which affect development. Let's start by looking at the map showing the average life expectancy worldwide, how long somebody lives. The darker the green, the longer the people in that country live, on average. Does this map support the Brandt line or not? Press pause now and think about your answer. Let's check our answer. Last lesson we found out that the Brandt line was out of date because countries have developed more since the Brandt line was created in the 1980s. We can say that the Brandt line is out of date because countries in South America such as Brazil and in Asia such as China now have a relatively high life expectancy, meaning that they must be improving their development level. We can say that life expectancy map supports the Brandt line because it shows Europe and North America as having very high life expectancies, and because most of the countries in Africa have low life expectancies. Press pause now to copy this text. Press pause now to copy these key words and definitions. The key words are quality of life, climate, political factors, corruption, imports and exports. Please copy these questions and write the answers. Press pause now to complete this task. Here are the answers. I'd like you to highlight the word inequalities in question 5. This means not everyone earns the same amount of income. Some people earn more than others. Press pause now to check your answers. For this activate, we are going to understand development indicator and their relationships. We're first going to understand a scattergram. I'm going to talk you through this answer and you will then have a go yourself. A scattergram is where the results have been plotted on a graph in the form of a dot. We have to look for a pattern. So let's look at the y-axis first. These show the child mortality. How many children between the ages of 0 and 5 have died in a country per 1,000 born? Now let's look at the x-axis. This is showing GDP per capita, the average amount of money a country has if it is evenly distributed per person. Now let's look at how these relationships will impact quality of life. By drawing a line of best fit, we can see that the relationship between GDP and infant mortality is that as GDP grows or increases, the infant mortality decreases or falls. Fewer children die per 1,000 the more money a country has. So for example, in North Korea, in Southeast Asia, for every 1,000 children aged 0 to 5, 30 will die. We can compare this to Luxembourg in Europe, where for every 1,000 children aged 0 to 5, 1 child will die. Burundi in Central Africa has a GDP per capita of $500 compared to the GDP per capita in Qatar of over $100,000. And Burundi has a higher child mortality rate than Qatar. Can you spot any anomalies? Is there a country that doesn't fit the trend? Angola is an anomaly because it has a higher GDP than both Burundi and North Korea, but a higher infant mortality rate as well. Now let's look at the answers. Please press pause and write the model answer now. Now have a go yourself. Press pause now to answer the questions using a scattergram. Now use the model answer to check your work. Press pause now to check your answers. We're now going to look at how does quality of life link to the development indicators. Do we realise just how much the quality of life in the developed world is much better than in the developing world? Watch the clip Teenage Affluenza is Spreading Fast. It shows a difference in children's lives between the developed and developing world, and the video uses irony. Is Erin's life really as bad as she makes out? The clip is available in the description to this YouTube channel. Consider, how does life vary between developed and developing countries? and what is the purpose of the clip. Press pause now and go into the description of the video on this YouTube channel. This is the map showing the level of HDI across the world. Let's remind ourselves what HDI is. Human Development Index. It combines GDP per capita, life expectancy and literacy rate. It's called a composite index, which means it uses more than one indicator to come up with the results. Somalia is one of the least developed countries with a low HDI. Then we have a group of developing countries with a medium HDI, such as Haiti. Next, we have a group of newly emerging countries which are developing quickly, such as Brazil and Russia, and these have a high HDI. Finally, we have a group of countries we classify as having a very high HDI, such as the UK, USA and Qatar. So now we're going to take the countries from the map we've just looked at, and we're going to look at their quality of life as shown through development indicators. And this table gives us the opportunity to do that. Now, last lesson you created your own development measurement table, and results for the HDI of different countries came from the 6 indicators that you used. Your results were between 26 and 120. Now, actual HDI measurements are between 0 and 1. So an HDI between 0.8 and 1 is high, and between 0.4 and 0.6 is low. I would like you to write these questions and complete the answers. Press pause now to answer these questions. So answer 1. The UK is the most developed with a HDI closest to 1 of 0.5. Answer 2. Somalia has very low HDI of 0.26. And for the challenge, Qatar is a really interesting example. It's an oil and natural gas rich country, which has a very small population. A lot of the people who work in Qatar are blue collar workers. They work in manufacturing or oil extraction, and they earn very little money annually. It is the very few super rich people who skew things and make it seem like Qatar is a super developed place when it's not. So how do we categorise or group these countries? Let's first use the HDI measurement to think about which countries fit the development. So we can place Somalia in the least developed country, Haiti in developing countries, Russia in newly emerging economies, and the USA in developed. Press pause now and copy the table with the countries. So we can say that countries are said to develop through the different stages over time. Therefore, in the future, all countries should develop and become developed. You're going to think about the question, how true do you think this model is? Is it possible for all countries to make the journey across the development model? Can you think of any factors which might prevent some countries from moving along the development scale? Please write your answer in your book and press pause now. So let's look at some answers. Climate. Many of the poorest countries are in the tropics, where it is hot, the land is less fertile, water is scarce, and diseases flourish. Natural resources. Some raw materials are valuable and can help a country develop if they have the resources to collect and process them themselves. For example, oil, diamonds, wood, and gold. Location. Being near trade routes and having access to the sea with ports has been important for trade. Landlocked countries really are a disadvantage. Trade. Goods are traded on a global scale, but it is difficult for poor countries to compete. Rich countries can make it too expensive to stop cheap imports undercutting their own goods. In the past, some countries have made money by colonising other countries and using their raw materials to produce manufactured goods. Wars. War uses up resources and makes it very difficult to produce goods and trade. It's important to understand whether factors are physical, natural, or human, involving people, and how they affect a country's development. Please copy the title and make a table like the one on the slide in your books. Over the next 8 slides, you are going to read about different factors that affect development. You need to sort the information into the correct columns and make a few important notes about each slide. Press pause now to create your table. So let's look at an example. Natural resources such as minerals, gas and oil can help improve a country's level of development. However, this is closely tied in the ability to exploit the resource for the benefit of the country. Exploit means to make use of a situation in a way considered unfair. One country taking a natural resource for its own benefit. Some raw materials are valuable and can help a country develop if they have the resources to collect and process them. These are physical factors, and I would write natural resources into the physical factors side of the table. Press pause after each slide, read the information and place it into the correct side of the table. Economic factors. Primary produce means goods that come from the farm, fruit, vegetables, cereals. Debt is when you owe someone money. Press pause now and read the slide and decide which side of the table it will go on. Political factors are those that are influenced by the government or the people in power. Corruption and poor management in countries. Countries need strong and stable and honest leaders to help them develop. War uses up resources and makes it difficult to produce goods and trade. Press pause now to read this information and add to your table. Physical factors such as climate. Many of the poorest countries are in the tropics where it is hot, the land is less fertile, water is scarce, and diseases flourish. Press pause now to read this information and add to your table. Social factors such as education, healthcare, and clean water system are all things that need government investment. Natural hazards. Some places are vulnerable to natural disasters. For example, Haiti is located in an area prone to earthquakes and hurricanes, which devastates areas where people live and grow food. In the past, some countries made money by colonizing others and using their raw materials to produce manufactured goods. Colonialism is when one country controls another country. Colonial powers use people and land in the colonies for their own profit and benefit. Check your answers and then complete the writing activity. So firstly, rank the factors 1 to 8 in order of influence on development. Number 1, you're going to give for something you feel is the largest influence, and number 8, you're going to give something that you feel is the smallest influence. Then you need to explain your choice for 1 and 8. You can use the starter sentences that are here. Press pause now to complete your answers. We're going to look at a case study of one country, which is a least developed country, Uganda. Here are some images from life in Uganda. With a GDP per capita of $870, it is ranked third poorest in regard to GDP. Uganda's HDI value for 2018 was 0.528, which put the country in the low Human Development Index category and positioned it at 159 out of 189 countries and territories. So why is Uganda's HDI ranking so low? Well, let's look at the factors that have affected Uganda's development. Let's look at the physical factors first. Uganda is landlocked. This means in order to trade internationally, they have to transport their goods on poorly built roads and through other countries. They therefore pay a high price for not having a seaport of their own. Their trade depends on ports of other countries transporting goods for them. It's important to note that this factor alone is not a reason for limited development. For example, Austria in Europe is highly developed with a very high HDI of 0.908. So there must be other things that are affecting Uganda's development. Uganda's severe drought means that it is very difficult to grow food to feed their population. 70% of the people in Uganda work in agriculture. They can't make a living and are stuck in a cycle of poverty and cannot better their future when the droughts are so bad. Let's take a look at the cycle of poverty. Please press pause and have a look at this. Now let's focus on the human factors. the 1990 civil war in the north of the country. This means that there was a war between citizens of the same country. People can't grow food. They are very limited in what they're able to do if they are trying to survive a civil war. In 2018, the Ugandan public sector was ranked 4th most corrupt in the world. When a government is corrupt, the whole population is affected as a result of the inefficient allocation of resources. What this means is the government money is not being spent on what the people need, so is low quality education and healthcare, and this lowers the living standards of most of their populations and really prevents or hinders development. Your final task is to write a postcard from Uganda explaining why you think the country is not yet classed as emerging or developed. Make sure you include 2 explained physical factors which have hindered or prevented development, 2 explained human factors which have hindered development, and 2 pieces of place-specific information. Use some of the details that we have in your fact file. So let's look at this answer first. Does it meet the criteria? Let's look at how it can be improved on. So as I read it, I'm going to bring up what this person has included. Dear friend, I'm currently travelling across Africa. I'm sending this from Uganda. Life is very difficult to the UK as Uganda is not as developed. It is actually the 3rd poorest in regard to GDP. So this person has put in place location information. This is because of some physical factors such as being landlocked, point, which means that the country cannot import or export goods very easily for trade. So here we have a good explain with point and develop. Also the climate, point, is difficult here as it is often droughts and 70% of people are farmers, which means they do not make money. So here we have a place location information and also a development using which means. And I also have 2 physical factors. Let's look at the final paragraph. Human factors are also a problem as there was a civil war here, point, in the 1990s. Now let's look, have they reached the success criteria? Well, they've included 2 explained development points for the physical factors, but they've only included 1 human factor and it hasn't been developed with the phrase which means or this means that. The place location information is good and they're including details from the table. Now go back and complete the writing activity on the previous slide. Once you've written your postcard, you have completed your work for this lesson. Well done.